Every year the school funding situation gets worse. We are expected to do more and more, and although the money is rising, we are still underfunded.
Well, unfortunately, the past decade of underfunding has meant that now well over 50% of schools in Northern Ireland are operating in financial deficits. So this isn't just about education funding for the future. There has to be funding to restore what has been removed from the past.
Small schools have always been vulnerable, and a lot of small schools across the country have closed over time. In the past, we were subsidised by the county. That is now stopping, and so our internet costs will be going from £2,500 up to £6,000. And obviously that's an impact that's going into the budget to take away from what we're doing to support the children.
96% of what schools spend is on staffing, which means that the 4% of spend that is left over after paying for the basic level of staff is what is used to pay for electricity, for heat, for water, and so on. What is left after that to support learning and teaching? Inevitably, it is our most vulnerable children who suffer.
The NAHT are raising the awareness, taking it to Parliament and a parliamentary group, that if they don't step up to this and be supporting the funding for schools, then they will cease to be in their communities.
Schools have a core purpose of delivering education, but in order to be able to do that, we do depend on a range of services to meet the broader needs of children.
Over the past decade, social services, mental health support, family support services, family respite, their funding has been cut.
Those children that are maybe having those needs that could be attended more efficiently by children's services, the school is then trying to pick up the pieces. So what we need to be doing is looking at the cost effectiveness of early intervention. If we help earlier when an issue is smaller, it's less intensive in terms of resourcing. The government has to take this issue very, very seriously because families are in crisis and are facing extreme difficulties.
In terms of child poverty in Wales, we have the highest rate of all the 4 nations, but very high levels of deprivation that they're dealing with within their communities. The Welsh Government use free school meals as the indicator for funding schools to support deprivation, and we see that as quite a flaky measure because it doesn't take account of all the indicators that we think should be taken account of in terms of working family poverty. One of the things we're campaigning for is to take a broader view of how to fund deprivation and support schools, but we need more schools to access that funding to support the children in their communities. It's not just about leaving it to schools and school leaders to solve this huge social problem. Part of what NAHT are campaigning for and supporting is this wider societal change in terms of how do we support families out of poverty and how do we give our next generations hope and, you know, a better future. That's what it's got to be about.
As a CEO, I'm obviously for academisation in schools that really want to be an academy. I wasn't forced to become an academy, it was the right choice for my group of schools. I'm totally against academisation of schools who wish not to take that path, and there are many, many other options.
Usually it's because you've been made eligible for forced academisation, and that's usually been because the school's standards perhaps are below what they should be.
We were feeling like it was forced academisation for us as a single academy to have to join one of the Catholic multi-academy trust. The feeling was that there was no choice.
If I hadn't have had the support from NAHT, then we probably would have gone down the line, and we knew we'd put in place a series of measures and we had improved the school. It would have just stopped everything that we were doing, and we'd have had to start again. All of your work as a head teacher would be in trying to change that structure and not on the teaching and learning, which is your core purpose.
Schools must be able to make their own choice. It isn't that academisation is a bad thing at all. It just has to be done properly, and it has to be individual to each individual school and what is right for them, for their children, for their local community.
School leaders in Northern Ireland are poorer now in real terms than they were a decade ago.
The pay of school leaders is one of the key reasons why so many deputy assistant heads or middle leaders thinking about going into management are choosing not to make that career path.
Is affecting not only retention of really good staff but recruitment. The quality of staff that we're losing from the profession isn't necessarily being replaced.
There has to be rewards for the increased pressures and accountability that go with senior school leadership.
The main thing at stake is the future development of our children, that they can reach their maximum potential in schools, and that's difficult when we don't have staff working at capacity. We need to recruit more people and we need to retain people in the next few years.
We have to take every opportunity we can to get the message across to government that there is a real crisis approaching in the future supply of school leaders.
NAHT is demanding for our members a fair pay settlement towards restoration of a proper pay for our school leaders who deliver so much for our children and young people.
We need to act swiftly, but have a very, very clear plan about how we are going to improve the education system in England and indeed in the UK.
School leaders are the people who have been holding together a broken system for the past 10 years.
The NHT are behind you and are talking to the government the whole time.
The encouragement, the empowerment that they actually give you in your day-to-day roles, I couldn't have done without it.
It's part of a community of people who are wanting the very, very best for our profession.
When our collective voice is heard on behalf of our children, it can't be ignored.